Our final speaker will be Luis van Ahn. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon. You may know him from some of his past work on the ESP game, CAPTCHA, ReCAPTCHA. He's going to talk to us today about crowdsourcing language translation. He'll be giving his talk in Spanish, and it'll be in real time. Actually, he said if you wait 6 hours, you'll get it translated to English.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good. 1 second, let me try to. Oh. Brazil is losing, by the way. Unexpected. Okay, so I want to start. I'm going to talk about Duolingo, which is the current project that I'm working on. But to explain it, I'd like to tell a story of an idea that I had when I was a kid. At the time, I thought it was the best idea in the world. It turns out it was a terrible idea. I also thought I was the first person to ever come up with this idea. It turns out probably thousands of people have come up with the same idea. And it was this idea. It's very simple. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make a gym which had the following property. It was free to go to the gym. We never charged the gym goers, but all the exercise equipment was connected to the power grid. And so that whenever people exercised, we would sell electricity to the power grid. So we would make money off of people exercising. That was the idea. I thought it was a great idea. It turns out it's a terrible idea because people are very bad at generating electricity. It's also the case that most gyms make most of their money from people not going there. So not a very good idea, but I will use it to explain later how this is related to Duolingo. Okay, so Duolingo is a project that I've started working on maybe about 4 years ago. What I wanted to do when I started working on Duolingo is I wanted to work on something related to education. Now, my views on education are shaped by where I'm from. So I am from Guatemala. This is a public service announcement. That is not where they keep the prisoners. It's Guantanamo. Okay. Now, here's the thing about Guatemala. It's a very poor country. And a lot of people talk about education being an equalizer. But I always thought of education as being a divider. It divides social classes. Because the thing is, the people who have money, the wealthy people, can pay for themselves for a very good education. They can probably pay for themselves for a Harvard-type education. Whereas the poor people can barely learn how to read and write. And because of that, they remain poor. Whereas the wealthy people, because they have such a great education, they remain wealthy. So it's this thing that just provides inequality in some sense. So I wanted to come up with a way to give education to everybody, the best kind of education to everybody. Now, I decided to concentrate on one type of education, which is very popular. It's learning a new language. It's very popular, except in the United States, it so happens. So there are 1.2 billion people in the world learning a foreign language. Now, the thing about this market is it's a very interesting market. 800 million of them satisfy 3 properties. First of all, they are learning English. Second, the reason they are learning English is so that they can get a job or a better job. And third, they are of low socioeconomic conditions. Okay, so most of the people learning a foreign language are poor people learning English so that they can get a job. This is most people learning a language. The ironic part is that at the same time, most of the ways there are to teach languages cost quite a bit of money. So they cater to the smaller segment of the market that happens to have a lot of money. So for example, if you think about it, here in the US, there's Rosetta Stone that costs about $500 to learn a language. There's competing programs in every country in the world, and they're all hundreds or thousands of dollars. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to make something that would give free language education to everybody, the best free language education to everybody for free. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Now, of course, if this is what you want to do, you run into the problem that how are you going to finance it? And this is where the idea of the gym came back, which is, remember with the gym, the idea was you could go to the gym and it was free to go to the gym, but we would make money by whatever you were doing there, selling it to somebody else. Well, it turns out you can do the same thing with learning a language. The idea is that while we're teaching a language, we could be extracting some of your mental energy and selling it to somebody else for doing something else. And in particular, what you can get people to do while they're learning a language is you can get them to do translation for you. Because a lot of times, some of the things that, if you ever learn a language, some of the exercises that you have to do while you're learning a language are translating little passages here and there. Well, what if you would be translating things that have never been translated before that we could sell as a translation. So this is what I did. So about 2 years ago, we launched this website called Duolingo, where the idea is that you learn a new language while at the same time you're helping to translate stuff from the web that has never been translated before. Okay, so the way it works is that you're learning some concept, and then after you learn a concept, we say, hey, if you want to help us, if you want to practice what you just learned, you can help us translate this document that is related to what you just learned, and that document is something that somebody's paying us to translate. So for example, CNN is one of the clients for Duolingo, where the idea is that they write all of their news in English, then they send it to us, and then we give it to our students who are learning English, and to practice English, they help translate it into their native language. And then once it's translated, we send it back to CNN, and CNN pays us for that translation. So in some sense, CNN is financing this free education of all of these people. Okay, so that's the basic idea of how this works. Let me play you a 1.5-minute video. Hopefully this works. That explains a little better how it works.
World out there, billions of us trying to live, love, prosper, and make sense of our brief time on this planet. Since the dawn of humanity, we've been passing information from one person to another through a common language. Unfortunately, you can't communicate with others without knowing or learning their language first. A similar issue has manifested on the web, where text can be penned in dozens of languages, each of which demands a reader's fluency. We've developed an elegant solution to both problems, a way for you to learn a language for free, while at the same time helping to translate text from the web, enabling a wealth of language-shackled information to be liberated for all of humanity. It's called Duolingo. Here's how it works. Let's say you're a native English speaker who wants to learn Spanish. We start by giving you a sentence from a Spanish website and asking you to translate it. Wait, back up. How can you translate a language you don't know? First, Duolingo only gives you sentences that fit your language level. Beginners get the really simple sentences from the web, and advanced users get the more complex ones. This way, everybody becomes a valuable translator. And second, if you're really lost, you can always see possible translations for words you don't know. Afterwards, Duolingo helps you understand and memorize the words you hovered over through educational examples. You can also vote on the quality of other students' translations, which helps you learn by seeing how others translated the same sentence. And because you create valuable translations while you learn, we return the favor by offering Duolingo completely free of charge. No ads, no hidden fees, no subscriptions, just free. To put the potential benefit of Duolingo into perspective, think about this. If 1 million people would use Duolingo to learn, the entirety of English Wikipedia could be translated to Spanish in just 80 hours. Duolingo. Learn a language while translating the web.
Okay, so that's the basic idea of how it works. So as I said, we launched about 2 years ago, and ever since we launched, it's been very successful in terms of the language education. So for example, this is our traffic. It's actually grown so by now we have about 12 million active users that are actually learning a language on Duolingo. That is, in fact, there are more people learning a language on Duolingo than in the entire United States public school system. So Duolingo is now the most popular way to learn languages online because it's free. That really matters. It's the #1 app in education, both Google Play and iOS Store. Also, Apple gave it the iPhone App of the Year last year. And even though Rosetta Stone spends $150 million a year in advertisement and Duolingo spends $0 in advertisement, now more people are searching for the keyword Duolingo than Rosetta Stone in Google. And also Rosetta Stone, there's like a stone that's like the Rosetta Stone. We get more searches than that. And the types of things that people say are very positive. So for example, this person said in the past 2 days they learned more from Duolingo than Rosetta Stone in over a month of use. Or this other person, who was my mother. Now, one of the reasons that people like Duolingo so much is because learning on it, when we were about to launch Duolingo, one of the things we realized is that, well, we're not the only ones to have realized this, but the thing about learning a language or learning anything by yourself is that the hardest thing is to keep yourself motivated. It's just really hard to keep yourself motivated to learn anything by yourself. So what we did is we just made it so that using Duolingo really feels like you're playing a game. Okay, so for example, the way we teach a language is we actually split it up into multiple units that we call skills. So for example, plurals is a skill, or animals is a skill. And the idea is that at the beginning, only one skill is unlocked, and you have to complete everything in that skill, and then you unlock new skills. So it feels a lot like a game tree. Each of the skills also has a strength bar associated to it. That measures how well you know stuff in that skill. And it goes up whenever you get things correctly related to that skill. It goes down if you get things incorrectly, and it also goes down naturally if you don't use things in that skill. That's to model your decay in your brain. And that's also something that gets people to come back to use Duolingo quite a bit, because whenever the strength bar is full, we turn the skill color golden, and people want to keep their tree gold. So this is something that gets people to come back. And if that's not enough to get people to come back, we also send them all kinds of encouragement to come back. So for example, we send our mascot crying. We've done a lot of tests to try to figure out what it is that gets people to come back, and this guy happens to win. We even tested how many tears there would be at the bottom. This is the winner guy. So guilt, it really helped. It really works. Now, inside a skill, when you're learning a skill, the way it works is, for most of the time, by the way, while you're learning something, you're not doing useful translations. Most of the time, because you can't quite learn a language just by translating stuff. Okay, so the way the learning works is that whenever you're learning a skill, you get these little tiny exercises that teach you different concepts. So for example, one of the concepts, here we could be teaching you with pictures, we could be teaching you what the word for boy is in Spanish. Or we may get you to say something into the app, and the app tells you whether you said it correctly to teach you some pronunciation. Now, for each of the exercises, you can either get them right or wrong. If you get them wrong, you also lose a life. And in a lesson, you have 3 lives, and if you lose all lives, you have to start over. Now, if you're able to finish the lesson without losing all your lives, then you get points. And then it is at this point that we say that this is the point. Right after this is when we actually get people to help us translate. At this point, we say, OK, we just taught you a concept. It may have been the concept of food or something. And then we say, if you want to practice what you just learned with something from the real world, you can help us translate this article that is related to food. So it could be like a menu, or something that is related to food, or a food blog or something. And at that point, the user can optionally do it. If they don't want to, they don't have to do it. But it turns out that it's about 60% of the people decide to yes, do it. And so then they go to a whole different screen where they can help to translate something that is related to what they just learned. And this is one of the reasons why people like Duolingo so much. It's because they can learn with real-world content. So not only do they learn with little exercises, they also learn with real-world content. So imagine learning English by helping to translate today's news from CNN. It's pretty rewarding. Now, when we started working on Duolingo, we actually didn't know anything about how to teach languages. So neither I nor my PhD student at the time knew anything about how to teach languages. So what we did is we went to read books on how to teach languages. But pretty quickly, we realized that we read a bunch of books. But pretty quickly, we realized these were very similar to diet books, where they all contradict each other. Okay, so in some diets, you cannot eat meat. In others, you must only eat meat. So they all contradict each other. So it's pretty funny. So what we did is we just took what we could out of each one of them to start teaching a language. But then we realized we were in a really good position because we realized that we had so many users that we could start figuring out the answers to some of these questions that we had at the beginning. So for example, nowadays, this is what we do nowadays. If we want to figure out whether we should teach plurals a little earlier or a little later, what we do is we run an A/B test. So we just, for the next 50,000 people that sign up, which by the way, it takes about 18 hours for 50,000 people to sign up to Duolingo. For the next 50,000 people that sign up, for half of them at random, we teach them plurals a little earlier. The other half, we teach them plurals a little later. And then we measure which ones learn better. We measure which ones make more mistake, which ones return more often, et cetera. And then after a few days, we can pretty quickly figure out, oh, it turns out teaching plurals a little later is a little better. So we're going to start teaching everybody plurals a little later. Okay, so we started doing that, and we do that. We do it's about 10 of these A/B tests per language per week. So basically every week, Duolingo is getting better at teaching you. And because of that, it's pretty effective now. So for example, somebody else did a study about how effective it is to learn a language in Duolingo. It turns out you can learn, if you use Duolingo for 34 hours, you can learn the equivalent of 1 semester of university of instruction of that language. Of course, I actually think that means that you don't learn all that much in 1 semester of university, but that's what you can do. Now, let me tell you about this other, this is, how much time do I have?
5.5 minutes.
OK, good. Good. So I can tell you about this other thing. So this is how so when we launched Duolingo, we only had, so this is a pretty big crowdsourcing effort that we're doing, that we're pretty proud of. So when we launched Duolingo, we only had one language. You could only learn Spanish from English. Then pretty quickly after that, we added learning English from Spanish, and we added a few more languages, but adding a new language to Duolingo requires quite a bit of effort, because we have to make a course for that language. And it's even worse, because in Duolingo, see, 2 languages actually matter, so it's a different course to teach English to Spanish speakers than it is to teach English to Chinese speakers. The courses are actually different. So if we are to cover the top 30 languages, all possible directions of the top 30 languages, you have to do hundreds of courses. So that was very difficult, and we decided we couldn't do it ourselves. So at some point, we decided to stop adding languages to Duolingo. We only had 5 languages, and we decided to stop adding languages, because it was just too much effort. But then we got, every day, we would get maybe about 50 emails a day of people saying, you really should add this language, or this other language, or this other language. And some of those emails said, and I'm willing to help you add it. And it was because people really believe in the whole mission of bringing free language education to the world. So there were these people that would say, look, I'm going to help you. I can help you add Duolingo. I won't charge you. Just let me help you add it. So what we did is we launched this website called the Duolingo Language Incubator, where the idea is that you can go there and you can help us add a new language course. The way this works, we decided not to make it work. So there's many ways in which this could work. One way is it could be like Wikipedia, where we just make a course and anybody can edit it. We decided to go the other extreme, which is in order to start a new course for Duolingo, first you have to apply. So you first have, so if there's no course to learn, for example, I don't know, Urdu from Bengali. That course does not yet exist in Duolingo, but if you would like to add it, what you do is you apply to us. You apply to the language incubator. And in the application, we ask you all kinds of questions, and then you have to basically give us your resume. And then afterwards, we look at all the applications that we get for a given pair of languages, and then we decide if we have any good ones, and then we start a language with 2 or 3 of these applicants. And then they essentially own the language, and then they construct the whole course. And they can invite others. By the end of the language construction period, it's about 10 people that end up building a whole course. It takes them in total about 1,000 human hours to do a course, all these 10 people. So I don't know, 100 on average per person. And so they own it. So far, we've gotten about 35,000 applications of people to add new courses. We've only accepted about 200 of them. And together, these 200 people have created about 35 courses. And in fact, all courses that we are adding to Duolingo are now made entirely by people. Now, of course, this is a pretty challenging task because you're making a new language course. And many of these people are not quite language experts. I mean, they know 2 languages. That's all that we require. So we've had to make a system that gives them enough flexibility to work for any language, but also that doesn't give you enough flexibility to really mess up the course. So the way it works is we give you a skeleton of what we think you should teach, and then they kind of have to fill out the entire skeleton. And then when they're done filling it out, we launch it, and then we give them the ability to run A/B tests on their own course as well, so that they can improve it. And they basically improve it a lot over the next few months. So this is basically how the Duolingo Incubator works. And that's all I have. That's it. Thank you.